If you hear this message, wherever you stand, I'm calling every woman, calling every man. We're the generation, we can't afford to wait. The future started yesterday.
Good morning, Detroit, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Empowered Living. I'm one of your hosts, Marshall Bryant. We also have,
Good morning, Detroit. I'm Laura Salin, and I also want to say Happy Black History Month as well.
and we also have with us Cindy Garcia, our special guest that is joining us today. And of course, Black History is every day,
That's
but
right.
of course, we
Signifies
have
this month.
signified this month, so
Yes.
we amp it up a little bit.
Right.
So we have Cindy Garcia here with us that's going to be sharing her story and also talking about DACA, a few things about the Dreamers, but her personal experience with immigration and with her husband, Jorge Garcia. So welcome, Cindy.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me on, you guys. It's real important for me to educate the people that are out there that don't understand the whole system about our broken immigration system.
Yes, and we're glad that you are coming on and sharing that with us because it is,
Absolutely.
with all situations, the main thing is education. We hear the headlines, we see the story, and it's like a big thing for a week or two, and then it's on to the next thing. And that's just not how it
That's just
works.
not right.
Because the problem does not go away. There's people's lives that are involved, and you don't get a chance to see how the marginalization, how it really is occurring and affecting communities, lives, and then you never get to the root of making it stop. So we want to start right off with, can you share with us the process of the immigration system and how it has affected your family?
We started off in trying to do the right thing, as the president says. You go and you try to fix somebody's status. You turn in paperwork saying you are here illegally, but you want to become a green card holder first.
Okay.
And we tried to do that, but unfortunately, the lawyer who did our paperwork screwed us over. So we had to settle with that, but that would be the process. Your lawyer would put in the paperwork, and you would continue on, and you would have a hearing, whether you would be able to apply for it or you wouldn't be able to apply for it, and they would be able to tell you why you couldn't fix your status at that time. But unfortunately, we were never given that chance because of our lawyer.
Okay. So this is one of those interesting topics that you never hear about behind the scenes. So as someone is fixing your paperwork or helping you along the way, of course you're paying them. And then I'm hearing, as I talk more with people and, befriending people, I'm finding out that their money is being taken, but paperwork is not being processed properly in all these cases. So then, of course, it starts that snowball effect in your life because, okay, to come up with that kind of money, what kind of fees are we looking at?
Every time you do an immigration fee, a lawyer fee, it starts off anywhere for the 125 and up. And you have to figure you're paying your lawyer a fee, immigration fee, and then a processing fee. So there's always 3 fees that you have to pay in order to get your stuff done. And that's where the money comes into play. If you don't have the money, your case cannot go forward.
And then, okay, now is it a work permit fee as well or any?
Yes, there is a work permit fee, and because I could read and write English because I'm a U.S. citizen, I would always do it for my husband
Okay.
and send it in, and we have never been denied.
Okay.
And this year when we went to immigration, I believe they knew he was going to get deported, and they told us, go ahead and fill out the paperwork anyway. So that was almost $500 that I sent away, and it wasn't even a week later when, he's being deported. If you knew this, why would you let me fill out an application and send it away? You're just collecting U.S. citizens' money, and I don't think that was fair.
Right.
It almost sounds like the lawyers are sort of exploiting the situation that they know, but they're just taking advantage of the people who might be just someone uneducated about how the whole process is. Do you think that's the case?
I believe that is the case because if they knew that if I knew that, I would have never have sent in the money.
Of
I would have
course.
said, okay, I'm going to do it, and never did it. But it never got to that point because we were trying everything we could to keep him here doing the right thing, saying so they couldn't hold it against us by saying, you never did the application for the work permit, so we're going to hold it against you. No, we tried to do everything right, but it didn't get us anywhere.
It's a catch-22 that's hurting our immigrant citizens in their pocket.
Right, right.
Totally unfair.
Before we come up with shortly, this time goes by so fast. And before we get to a break, I want you to kind of explain your husband's situation where he was not old enough for DACA, and he's not a U.S. citizen. Could you explain that situation with that process, how you tried to apply and how you found that out?
Yeah, we were going to apply, and our lawyer had told us he doesn't fit the requirements because of his age. So he fell short by 1 year. So we were devastated at that time. But like I tell him, if my husband was 1 year, what happened to the person that was 1 day? How does he feel knowing that he cannot apply for something that it would make his status a little better and he would be able to stay in the United States? I said, so it has to hurt him more than it would hurt us, but it's still devastating to everybody because everybody's trying to do the right thing. They want to be here, they want a better life, and they're not giving that opportunity.
And if your children are U.S. citizens, as a parent, you want to be in their lives to raise your children.
Yes, we wanted my husband to stay here to be a better person to help raise his children, because there is a lot of deadbeat dads out there, and we're saying, okay, if the U.S. government condemns the parents who are not with their children, and they go to court, family court, and go through all that struggle, well, here's a man who's trying to do the right thing, raise his children, but yet you want to get rid of them. It's like you're playing a double standard there with the husbands, which isn't right.
Well, for centuries they've done that with slavery, with a man
Yeah,
not in the
unfortunately,
hole,
yeah,
and
yeah.
breaking the family structure. And then what happens to the children is you have that chance where they start either getting involved in things. Of course, emotionally there's scarring, and it starts a whole lot of snowball effects in regards to that, with that brokenness. Hopefully with prayer and different things, you keep things together. But now you're a single parent raising your children.
Yes, it is, and it's very hard because I have to play mommy and daddy for them. So I have to pick up his slack that he would do at the house, and it's going to be so much harder because in the kitchen there was 4.
Right.
Now there's 3. At the dinner table there was 4. We're back to 3 again. So washing dishes, if it was his turn for the week, now I have to pick up his and mine. So it's a lot harder, and that's what people don't understand, that daily life tasks where I depended on him to pick up the kids. If I had a meeting, now I have to make sure that if I have a meeting or if I have to do grocery shopping, it's between the times that I can do it while the kids are in school, because I have nobody to pick up my kids.
And see, that as you said earlier too, Marshall, see, this creates a devastating family psychological effect on the kids.
Right.
What's the family as a whole? And to me, that's just detrimental, Cindy, from this information, what do you want the public to understand, and how to educate some of our viewers to understand how this process works too?
I want to educate them that there is a lot of myths out there which are not true. And before you speak about any subject, whether it's immigration or whatever it is, educate yourself, because in our story, we try to do the right thing. And if you would read our story, you can see that. And people always say, well, it doesn't take that long, or why didn't you try to do the right thing? We did. But nobody understands that it takes a process, even now, to get his paperwork started. It could take up to 18 months. It's nothing that happens overnight. And people have to understand it's hurtful that when people come with comments to me and my family, well, why did you even marry him if you knew he was illegal? Love is love.
Yeah.
Love is blind. You
Right.
can't tell me who to fall in love with. So it's just, you have to educate yourself, know the rules, know the laws that are out there, and don't hurt people's feelings, because then I turn around and say, what happens if this was you? If I came into your house and took your loved one, how would you feel? Obviously, you're going to be upset, and you're going to try to fight me because I'm taking your loved one. But
Of
at this
course.
point, my hands were folded because I did everything possible the right way to try to keep my husband, and we couldn't do it. So always educate yourself, get to know the facts before you speak about a subject, because you're going to sound ignorant.
Okay.
I said, so don't do that. If you can't read and write, we'll get you help.
Okay.
We'll help you understand, but
Awesome.
but come live with me. If you have any questions, always come live with me. Call me, inbox me. I will tell you. You won't make it
Share the
a week.
experience.
You won't
So,
make it a week,
yeah,
and if I take you
right.
to a real undocumented family, you won't last 2 days.
Now, you said the process could take up to 18 months, is that correct? Something
Yes,
like
for the
that?
paperwork that we're trying to do to bring him back can take,
Uh-huh.
the longest is 18 months. And that's what people have to understand. That's money that I have to send to my husband to support him, support my household, which isn't going to be the same because it was two incomes.
Of course.
Now there's one
Now the
income.
one income.
And I'm medically retired, so that's not a huge income for me to be
I can imagine.
sending back and forth for him, for me, and to feeding my children. I said, it's going to be hard. It's going to have to be something that I play with.
Right. Okay, we're at our first break. So this is a lot of information to
Yes.
understand, because the thing is, it's just like the person that has cancer. It's just like the person that is going through homelessness. You don't just wake up one day and there it is. There's a process that happens, and there's a life and we take humanness. I think that's what it is. And I want
Yeah.
to talk more later on about a lot of these issues, and that humanness, that we don't take the time to look to see that this affects this and this affects something else that happens in your life, and then it triggers something else. Then it's that whole snowball effect that creates that marginalized situation, that people above us making decisions
Right.
are not acting like they are cognizant of understanding that the effects and humanness in these situations. So we're going to take a brief break. We're going to come back and we're going to finish this discussion with Cindy Garcia. And stay tuned, Detroit, because we have a lot more valuable information that she needs to share with us, and we're grateful that she's here to share her experience.
If you hear this message, wherever you stand, I'm calling every woman, calling every man. We're the generation, we can't afford to wait. The future started yesterday, and we're already late.
Say, what do we want? Dream Act. When do we want it? Now. Say, what do we want? Dream Act. When do we want it? Now. Say, what do we want? Dream Act. When do we want it? Now.
We're going to pressure Gary Peters and we're going to pressure Debbie Stabenow not to just blame Republicans. We want them to be bold leaders. Like they say they are, well, let's see it then. We need proof. We need you to actually do it. Words mean nothing anymore. We need actions.
We need to have a DREAM Act. We don't need words. The time to do it is now. It is time for our senators to stand with courage that matches their convictions. Words are not enough. It is time to march. It is time to act. It is time to vote.
Welcome back, Detroit. If you're just now joining us, we have with us this morning Cindy Garcia, who is sharing her story about immigration this morning and her husband's experience, Jorge Garcia, that was deported from Detroit on Martin Luther King Day. So we left off and we were talking about the effects and how it affects the family. But let's talk about also the change from traditional immigration to merit immigration, and how that also plays a role and affects, what's going on with you.
When it comes to the traditional, it would be you would put in your paperwork and you could try to bring a family member from whatever country it was into the United States, as long as you could prove that you can support your family member. Merit now, he wants you to be able to have all these different stuff in your background, and you have to qualify. If you don't qualify, then you can't come. And his qualifications is you have to have money and you have to have a sponsor. How are we going to be able to do that?
Right.
We're not going to be able to bring our family members into the United States because we're not a corporation. We don't have money, but we want a better life for them.
Right.
And that's what the president is working for, where he only wants one color, and obviously it's not my color.
You said qualifications as far as money. Is there like an income level with that, or is there an income level requirement?
I'm assuming that there is an income level that you have to meet in order to be allowed back into the country.
And if you're looking for sponsorship, that sounds like
Another.
And it has to be a corporation. It can't be a small business. It has to
Really?
be a big corporation.
So
yes.
we're talking a big sum of money that's not small.
Exactly.
At all.
So that's where he's eliminating the lower class people because he's not giving them the opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, you know, if you're not in a certain class,
You're setting the roadblocks up for them.
you're right. Right. So again, there's that marginalized situation, you know, racism, who I want, who's not worthy enough to be here. And it's sad.
Like he's picking and choosing. You know, it's almost like an adolescent game he's playing with these people's lives.
It is. Well, with all of our
Well,
lives.
that's
And
true.
because see what's happening, it's DACA and it's one way written here for this group of people, it's written another way for another group, and it's written another way, but actually it's all the same thing.
Right, because even for family reunification, when the case hits for my husband, he's trying not to bring them back. He doesn't want them back. He's saying, no, they have to stay there. He doesn't want to bring them back. And that's what we're trying to fight is, no, we need family reunification. That's where the Merricks come in by saying, we need our husbands. They were our sole providers. Please bring them back. The kids need them. But he's saying, no, if they don't fit these qualifications when it's money-wise and you don't have your sponsor, I said, you're telling me like I have to go to Ford Motor Company and say, okay, since I retired from there, will you be willing to sponsor my husband? Then Ford is going to say, well, wait a second. If I sponsor him, what is he going to do for me?
Right.
Does he have any type of bachelor's degree?
What skills can he
What
bring
skills
into-
can he bring into
the
Ford's? And I'm
company,
just like, well, he's a landscaper. Well, then I can't use him.
Right.
That just doesn't sound right.
It's a catch-22.
It is. And then the thing is, like you said, without the husband in your life, without the husband in your children's life,
Right.
you know, just the effects that has on children in itself when the father is not in the home. We know
Absolutely.
statistically what happens. Okay, so if you have a good structure and you planted some good seeds there, chances are some things are going to happen. But
gonna be a
for
breakdown.
those that are younger children, it becomes harder. You have to have those uncles and those coaches and different people to step in. But there's still that chance. How many times have we seen this where, you know, sometimes that's where that situation with imprisonment comes,
Right.
dropouts, you know, getting into gangs, you just all kinds of things that affect, and it happens across all minorities.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is something that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely.
You know, and like I said, we can't keep treating these topics like, okay, this is the trauma of the week. Now let's move on to next
A
week's
new
thing.
topic, right.
No, we need to get to the bottom of every last single one and keep talking about it. Okay, so with your children in school, and this is the thing as educators, we see children that are in the same situation. We don't see as
Right.
many, but we do have. I have a little girl in my class right now. I won't discuss her situation, but that situation is there. How does it affect the children? How are your children affected?
It affects them emotionally, psychologically, because they're looking for the warmth of their dad, and obviously their dad's not there. They can talk to him on the phone, but it's not the same. And of course, they want it when they have projects done or certain homeworks done or even special events at school. You want both of your parents to attend, and we were always attending as 4. Now it will be 3, so obviously some kids have said, so, you know, your dad's gone, how does that make you feel? And they're like sad, upset, you know, but we have to continue going. I was like, that's what your dad wants you to go. But as my kids are older, and I've noticed when they were smaller, it affected them differently because they cried. They didn't want to go to school. They wanted to stay home. And they're looking for love. They're looking for attachment because they know one parent left. They're probably thinking, when is the other parent going to be taken too? And it's always fear that we've instilled in our children now. And they shouldn't even be dealing with that
Right.
at 7 or 8 years old. They should be enjoying running around the park, enjoying school, not worrying about it's immigration.
Right.
They don't need to be dealing with that in their lives.
And then there's no counseling. We know that for a fact. The teacher has to be the counselor if they care enough to pay attention that the child is withdrawn or something is, you know, different or just an extra little word, are you okay today or something. But if they're too busy, because they keep us busy, then, you know, it's no counseling in school. Have you addressed any of that with?
We have talked to the school, and the school social worker has said, I will be here for your kids
Oh, good.
whenever they have a problem. Just tell them to come straight down to us, even if they have to sit and cry or they feel like they have to lay down. We're here for them because this is new to us,
Okay.
to the Wyandotte system. We've never experienced this, so we don't even know how to handle this because it's like a death, but it's not a death.
Right.
So how do we actually tie it in, and how do we learn from this? They're like, there's other people it's going to be affecting because we're becoming more diverse now in this area. So what do we do? How do we handle? I said, you have to learn. Maybe we need to sit down because I'm the number one case and figure out how to help you guys deal with this, because it's not easy, and you got to understand there is other kids out there, and maybe you haven't caught it, because I've gotten parents from the Wyandotte schools to say we're going through the same thing, and how are you dealing with it? How are the kids? Because my daughter has acted up and she doesn't want to go to school, and where do I go from here? They're looking for me, and I'm like, I'm new at this too, so let's battle this together,
Right.
and build a coalition
Right.
instead of one-on-one.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing is, this has been going on for a while. So the kids have to go to school. So
Right.
that's why I'm saying, why is there not a support for this? Because it's there. Just because it happened, the child goes to school, it didn't go away. The child is not talking about it. And that's what I've noticed. Sometimes they're quiet. But sometimes when being quiet doesn't mean I'm okay.
No, sometimes that's a red flag of serious concern,
Right.
of psychological concern, because like I said, you mentioned earlier you have a student who's experiencing this. Can you just truly imagine he or she is, first of all, coming to school, and our goal is to teach them the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s. But this child has this enormous amount of baggage that she has to bring just to go to school from 8 to 3. That's as an adult, I can't even identify with what these younger children are going through.
In some of the cases are, like I said, I won't get deep into it. Both parents are out of the country and they're fostered. So, and a lot of times they don't know how to open up because they don't know how to trust.
Right. Exactly.
So it's kind of like when you get them to open up and build some trust with you, that's why you have to be very sensitive. It's like all of these issues are making us desensitized, especially when we keep moving and do not address it. And that's one of the things that really bothers me. And then we wonder, well, where did we go wrong? Well, how did that happen? Well, this happened because we're becoming so desensitized. And it's just like, okay, like I said, the trauma of the week. Now we move on to the next thing. No, these problems still exist. We cannot, your life when you leave, and you talked about it, it's not going to change.
No.
You're still Cindy Garcia. You still have this concern. You're still trying to get your husband back. Your children are still missing their father. And just because we don't see you did not mean the problem went away.
Right.
Right, and when we watched the video, that was the main concern of a lot of people who seen it, because they seen that my son had his hands to himself. He didn't reach out and hug him, and they're like, has he opened up to you guys? I'm like, no, he's being very quiet. They're like, you need to start worrying about him, because he doesn't need to keep to himself. He doesn't need to be quiet. He needs to open up.
Right.
They're like, that's the first sign, and if you don't address it, it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
You're going to have more problems. They're like, you have to get him to talk. So we're trying slowly with him to get him to open up, where I can hug him, and I tell him, I love you. Your dad loves you, but I need you to express your feelings towards what's the whole situation. I need to know how you feel, because he's not doing it.
Yeah, it's like a grief, like you said. It's like a death, but it's not.
Right.
So it's like a grief. Isn't it 7 stages? It's anger. It's guilt.
Yeah,
it's,
right.
it's
Levels,
all those different levels, and just it's the same thing when it's forced abandonment.
Yeah.
That's what it
You're
is.
It's
exactly
basically
right.
it's
Yeah,
forced
it's forced
abandonment. You're making a person
Legalized abandonment.
Legalized
That's
abandonment.
legalized abandonment.
That's a new word. Legalized abandonment.
But
You
it-
hear that,
it
Detroit?
fits.
Legalized abandonment. I was going to put it out there. That's what they're
Right.
doing. Oh my goodness. So with this experience, just imagine how many people have had to decide between the fees and giving up their homes, or with the fees also medical conditions.
Yeah.
Because there's some families that have medical concerns,
Some concerns, yeah.
and they feel guilty enough, oh, well, we won't deport this person because they have lupus or some kind of, but the caretaker that's taking care of them, they're trying to send them away. So it's like, and then the children, that gives them that kind of, well, what do? We're here, so they may have to drop out of school, because I've heard situations with that too.
Yes, we had to choose back in, I think it was 2011, 2010, choose between keeping my house in Dearborn or my husband, because we had to pay all these fees to keep him here. So we had to lose our house in Dearborn. There was no option. So we had to foreclose on that home. Short sale was done. We had to move in with my brother in Lincoln Park. So that took a toll on the kids. And this other story that I know of where they were in sanctuary, the lady is sick, like you said. Now the kid has to figure out, if you take my dad, or you even take my mom, what am I going to do?
Right.
Because I'm older now. He's 15. Is he going to go back to a country he does not know, or is he going to try to stay here and better himself? But then again, who is he going to stay with? Because at 15, you can't stay by yourself.
Right.
So there's so many things being thrown at him that the family has to sit down and figure it out, and sometimes they got to figure it out at a snap, because time goes by too fast, and you got to make split decisions.
And then the thing is this with the foster care system. We have a lot of children here in Michigan. We have the highest number of children that once they're fostered out at 18, they're homeless.
Right.
Yes.
So now you got another situation that intertwines with this situation too, that again never gets addressed. And this is just really, this is just so sad. And then, like you said, the time when when you started, when you had to make that decision, is it the home or is it the paperwork and the money? It didn't just happen. There was a process.
Yes.
Even down to the day your husband was deported, because that's the thing that caught my attention. I'm like, wait a minute. Somebody filed paperwork and it went from this date to this date to say that on this day, Martin Luther King Day of all days, that he's being deported. Somebody signed and stamped and said it's going to be this day.
Yeah, we had gone in November thinking it was just a regular date. We were going to have a yearly visit, and they said, oh no, we're going to detain him. I must have turned pale, and my husband turned pale, because the officer was, I said, well, wait a second, let me go check something. He comes back and says, okay, well, we're going to give you a decision. Do you want to self-deport, or do we deport you? I said, no, we'll self-deport if that's what you're telling me, but I need to know why he said, because your time has run out because of the Trump administration. We have given you chances to try to fix your status, and you didn't take them. I said, well, unfortunately, he couldn't apply for DACA. So there was no opportunity given to me.
Right.
He was 1 year short. So with this new DACA, can't we work something out to let him stay until March? Hopefully by March, they've come up with a decision and he can qualify for DACA. He's like, no, because it's up in the air. I can't speak on something that's not in paper yet. It has not been written. So we're giving you until the 20th of November. Bring me a ticket and he'll have to deport. So we did that with the help of our officials. We got him to step in, and they gave us a phone call, which was 2 days before Thanksgiving. And they said, okay, we've reviewed his record again. He is upstanding citizen.
Okay.
He's done everything right up to this point. You guys have done everything right. We'll let him stay for the holidays with the family. They didn't realize that January 15th was Martin Luther King Day, and they didn't realize that they were doing an injustice, but at the same time, they were empowering me at that time. They never realized how much power they have given me. And I bet now they regret doing that, but they can't say it on camera.
That's sure.
Right. Well, sometimes they light a fire, especially under us women. And we get, it's nothing like a woman that's burning it on fire with the issue she's got to get through, especially for our family. And this afternoon, you have a visit. You have a visitor that's coming in. Can you tell us about that?
I was called by Debbie Dingle and was told that Steny Hoyer is coming to my house. And I still don't know the full details, but he works side by side with Nancy Pelosi.
Okay.
So that ought to be an interesting meeting later on this evening. And we're going to take it from there.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. All right. This, like so many concerns, and we're going to keep you here because we're going to keep talking because it all folds into other areas in concerns. And so many things have happened this week alone. We've had the mass shooting in Florida. And people do not realize when teachers hear mass shooting, it affects everyone. But the one thing that really, and I've never addressed this before, but those, you know how in the back of your mind, you just like, I don't like
Absolutely.
this. The lockdown drills, I'm sure I'm not the only one. It gets to me. To know that in my job description, I have to do a lockdown drill. I didn't have to do one as a child.
No.
You know, when I went into education, I was never told, okay, fire, of course, you know, fire
It was
drill,
on a fire tornado.
drill.
That's all
now,
we did. It was always
now,
weather.
years later,
Yeah.
it's lockdown drill. So I have to be prepared for an active shooter to come into a building, and I have to be on guard and ready to be prepared to do whatever I can to save the children and myself.
That just shows you that the sign of the times are truly saddened now. Whereas you mentioned a lockdown drill now is common practice. Years ago, we just knew that some areas in the world were safe, like churches and schools. That's just one area that you didn't even imagine that there was a shooting would take place. But now here we are in this day and time that we have to have a common practice to I just say, prepare for a tragic event that can occur at any given time. It's just truly sad for the country. It's just,
It is.
That's just a sad state of affairs.
And this morning, I was thinking, because all week I've been thinking about it, and I was thinking, I really want to address this because, like we were saying, nothing just happens the day of. There's something been going on all along. There's something that's been going on when children grow up and it happens. Something's been happening all along. The school has been seeing something. The school has been trying to report something. The teacher has been trying to say something. The students are frustrated and, you know, something's going on between them. You know, sometimes we don't always hear firsthand with students what's going on. Like your children, they'll talk to their friends before they'll talk to the adults.
Yeah,
Right.
they'll open up to them.
So with that being said, I wasn't sure like how, you know, as a teacher, you really we know more insides than people on the outside that judge. And the same thing with your situation. Like you said, don't just judge the situation. Come talk
Exactly.
to me because you're skimming the surface. You're just looking at what you hear. You're not inside this situation.
Wow.
But I saw something and it gave me confirmation to speak on it. And I saw a video this morning before I left the house. And the children were saying, how dare you say, how could we have ostracized him when you don't know what it's like being there every day with someone that is acting a certain kind of way. And that's what I was feeling as a teacher. A lot of times you are seeing things over the years, and then that student goes to another grade and they go to another grade. And they didn't just, they're in a nice, quiet student all the time. Something is going on.
Right.
Because we've all been there, well, excuse my French, well as hell in your classroom, and you're going, what do I do? There's no appeasement. You can't make them be quiet. You can't get them to understand. Sometimes they're acting out. Sometimes they're withdrawn, and you're wondering, like, is everything okay? Whatever the situation is. But the thing is, before we get to the NRA and the gun laws,
Yes.
let's talk real as teachers. There's resources that really need to be done inside where we're just passing it along until all of a sudden it blows up. Now the whole world sees it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, of course, money is being made, and it's like, we're sending thoughts and prayers. What do thoughts and prayers do after something has happened?
Nothing.
After a tragedy.
After a tragedy.
After a tragedy. You know, like I said, children's lives have been cut short.
Right.
I think it goes back to not to mean to cut you off.
No, go right ahead.
But it goes back to the situation where the schools now have to prepare for all this. Have a counselor on hand at all
Absolutely.
times. Doesn't matter if it's my situation or the shooting. It's like these kids have so much to deal with now with, like you said, the drill. We do it at our Catholic school. When I teach religious ed, we have to do this with the kids.
Right.
Now they're experiencing it twice. At school and at church. We have to deal with that. But are the schools being taught this of how to react when something like this happens? The tragedy that comes after the aftermath. Do you have counselors on hand? Can you sit and talk? Even if it's one whole week, you don't teach nothing, but talk about what happened. Because
Right.
that's what the kids need in their lives,
Yeah.
is somebody to be there for them. Or if they have the situation with the child,
Right.
you know what? Let's sit down with this child with a group of people, not actually pick on him, but say, hey, what's going on today? And how was your day? And what's
Right.
going on at your house? Only your certain people. So that way maybe he will open up and you will know what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, it's just really, really sad because, you know, with these situations that happens and nothing's done, but they connect into other marginalized situations. But then at the top, the people that's making the laws, the people that's making the money, they are benefiting off the tragedies.
Yes.
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 They're making the money off the situation,
That is
and then they're
so,
going, "Oh,
so
we'll send
true.
our condolences, our thoughts, and our prayers." And the thing that really got me thinking this week, because I read a lot, and then I start connecting things, and I said it's really ironic. On February the 14th, exactly 50 years from now ago, that on February 14th. The mayor of Memphis told the sanitation workers, go back to work. And they were killed inside of the garbage truck
Garbage
trying to get out of the rain
Right.
Because they weren't allowed to go.
because they weren't allowed.
To go inside and with the.
So the two were killed. The family, they didn't even want to compensate the family. So after that, the sanitation workers were like, this is not fair. You know, the trucks are, you know, they're not even running properly because that was a malfunction.
That's a malfunction. That,
You know,
that ended in death.
Yeah,
Right.
and then they weren't getting the overtime. They weren't getting all these things. So 50 years later, and it's like these tragedies, it's just like, I was just ironically like, wow, this is 50 years and we are still fighting the same fight. We're saying it maybe a little differently, but if we look at it, the same treatment of you're not human. And then it brought me to then someone else said, you know, this week when I heard about LeBron James and, you know, he was just shut up and dribble. And I said, okay, that's the same thing. Goes back to the sanitation workers where they
Right.
were told, okay, he told them just go back to work. Go back to work and then we'll talk about it. So again, shut up and just do what benefits me. And then maybe I'll think about it. Maybe we'll discuss it. Or if not, you just do what you need to do. And then, you know, do they always run their mouths like that? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And we
Yeah.
need to, just like this conversation needed to happen, because when we don't run our mouths, then you have all kinds of impressions that are not true, or you don't get the real effect of the humanness behind the situation. So yeah, we do run our mouths, and we
Yeah.
need to keep running our mouths.
That's true. That's true. It just, as you were saying too, Marshall, it just truly just, it burns me up to know that the decision makers, our senators, our congressmen, our people on Capitol Hill, are playing a chess game with the lives of the people who voted them in office.
Right?
You know, that they're playing a chess game with people's lives. And as you said earlier, too, there's money to be made behind some of these decisions. And it's truly disheartening that when these issues and these situations arise within the community, they're just being glossed over. As you said, it's just, our thoughts and prayers. Okay, fine, but where are the thoughts and prayers when you all are making these decisions that you know that's going to affect these citizens directly?
Right.
Where are the thoughts and prayers then? So just that's my little soapbox this morning. But it's, and as you also mentioned too, we as teachers, it really hits us directly. There's an emotional hit because, as you stated, when you hear about these tragedies that happen here in the United States and in other areas of the world too, we immediately think about our kids.
Right.
And parents too.
Yes.
Parents too, but teachers, we have more than just our own children. We have other people, parents' children. So we develop ownership when they're under our watch.
Right.
So it's just heartening, and I truly hope that our senators and our decision makers would just really take a deeper look within themselves and start making more accountable decisions when these things arise.
Right, because just think about it. Even if it's, and I've thought about it in a fire drill, something happens, but just think when some tragedy happens, and just now you have the active shooter drill. If you make it, to have to call that parent and say, I'm sorry to tell you, these are the things that really need to be thought about. So it's like thoughts and prayers. Think about how do you tell that parent? How do you tell that co-worker's family how this occurred? And I'm sorry to have to tell you this.
On our watch.
On our watch.
On our watch. On our watch.
And then it's just like, well, thoughts and prayers and our condolences, and we're grieving and
move on.
And move on. That is something, one, you will never ever forget.
No. None
of these situations. No. Even to go through the process you're going through, this is not a situation that you're going to forget. Your children are going to forget. There's going to be scars.
Yes.
Somebody didn't care. Somebody, you know what I mean? And that's just like, with this just shut up and dribble, going back to that whole situation, there was a minister, Reverend James Lawson. He said it best with that whole situation. And I wrote it down. He said, when you say something like that, you're not looking at that person as a man. You're not looking at that person as a human being. That's what I was saying. You don't see the humanness.
Right.
Exactly.
I don't see the humanness in you. I just see the benefit that I need from you.
The service.
Yeah.
And no matter how we try to cover it up, he said it did. It's nothing but racism.
And also, too, I would like to charge the viewers that are parents too. We have to stop when you see children behave in a certain way. Sometimes, and I know as parents, you say, well, he or she is going through a phase,
Right.
They'll be okay. We have to come out of that kind of thinking, Detroit, because sometimes red flags show up within your children, and they need to be addressed. They need to be addressed. If things are not normal and there's an emotional and psychological effect for your son and your daughter, let's come out of saying he or she is going through a phase, they'll be okay. No, address that problem, because unfortunately, like the young man in Parkland, Florida, he has some issues. He has psychological issues, and I'm sure they didn't happen just months back. Those issues probably started when he was, a young person, 6 or 7 years old. They got worse. They perpetuated, they snowballed, and then unfortunately, this happens. Stop ignoring these facts, parents. Don't be wrong. I'm not saying I don't write the book on parenting. I know it's not an easy job, and I applaud the ones who are bending over backwards, making all those sacrifices for your children. But when you see, I'm just going to say some psychological red flags within your own children, address them immediately. And if you have no idea how to address them, then find someone, find an organization, talk to the people at your child's school, get that child some help. And even if it's a small situation, okay, then you can start ruling things out. But at least you've addressed the problem. You know, so let's stop ignoring these problems, and when we see these red flags, they need to
Right.
be addressed immediately.
And see, and that's why we can't be quiet about it, because when you're being quiet about it, that's how it's most manipulated. Okay, so let me
Right.
explain. I'm quiet about this situation. I don't want anybody to know. You know, you hear a lot of times, not my child,
Absolutely right.
not this, not that. Like this, what stays in this house, what happens in this house stays in this
Exactly.
house.
Right.
You know, nobody needs to know. We don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to be shamed. Okay, we got to get out of that.
Yeah.
Because what happens with these situations, the higher ups know they exist. So statistically, they do research, or they stop the research, just like they stopped the NR, you know, with
Right.
that, with the gun violence. So okay, so now if we stop that research, now we're not going to go into who's doing it, why they're doing it, the demographics, all this stuff, how to curtail it, how to stop it. So now it's manipulated because now the guns are going into the wrong hands. And that's now why we're having this situation where now we have active shooters. Because your whole situation has been manipulated. Same thing with the teachers. Okay, take these tests. People are creating programs that do not work. Then you give the children the test. Then you're being told you're not a good teacher. They didn't pass the test.
Right.
They're not proficient. And all these different situations, but no resources are really created around to change the situation and to help them. So statistically, all these things happen.
And you know, and just to also piggyback on that too, the gun laws, they have to be revisited so much. It's just, I was speaking with a friend a few days back. He's originally from Florida, or Florida or Alabama. I can't remember at this point. He shared with me that the legal age to obtain a gun was 19.
Wow.
I almost hit the floor when he shared that with me. And I said, okay, here's a law that's been put in place, how a 19-year-old can obtain a gun, but he or she is not old enough to buy alcohol or drink. What kind of message are we sending here? I can buy a gun legally. All I need is a valid license, no background check, no psychological, but I can buy a gun at 19, but you won't allow me to buy alcohol till 2 years later. We've got some work to do in this country, because
sure
that's backwards and that's hurtful on so many levels.
Right.
On so many levels. So
And we need to have intense conversations like we had here. Because just like sharing your story and sharing in depth what it looks like, what it sounds like, and just like I have to go back to what was said, when we don't shut up,
yeah.
then you get that. Just like, okay, let's evaluate this. Okay, 19 years old. Wasn't he 19 years old?
Yes.
He was 19.
19.
19 years old. Can't buy alcohol. But somehow they can still get that too.
But he can get a, yeah, well, yeah.
But you put a
Yeah.
dangerous weapon, he's able to get a dangerous weapon and then see what happens. So see, all these situations, they're manipulated
Right.
when we don't talk. So that's why, no, we don't shut up. We need to keep talking, address it, stop being embarrassed of your situation. Because see, the thing is, when you go through your situation, and I had to learn this too, and a pastor told me it was something I was going through. It's like, don't be scared to talk about it.
No.
It was
Exactly.
like, when you are afraid to talk about it, what you are doing, you are carrying the shame of the person that is victimizing you. You're carrying the shame of the person that is doing the wrong, and they're able to get away with it and walk around as if they're doing nothing. They're dressing it up, looking good, and you're bogged down, you're discouraged, feeling like, woe is me, it's only me. No, and then that's the other thing, it's not only you.
No.
So when you hold your head up and you talk about your situation and empower yourself, I love you said that, empower yourself.
That's right.
Then what happens is you give people permission to empower themselves too.
That's why I speak up about our situation to everybody that's willing to listen, because the minute I keep quiet, it's going to go away. No one's going to care. And this situation is still here.
Right.
It didn't go away. My husband's not brought back, so we're still suffering. So everybody has to stand up, like you said, and talk about any situation, whether it's immigration, whether it's rape, whether it's bullying, stand up and speak to somebody because the resources are out there
Yes,
for those
yes.
type of cases. We may be working on ours, but at least somebody will step up and say, "This is what's happening to me. Can you please help me?" Instead of keeping it in, it's eating you up, and you shouldn't do that.
No.
You should be able to stand up, find the faith that you need, because that's what keeps me going. Is God
Right.
is
Amen.
empowering me to push forward to say, "I'm giving you all this so you can speak." Not on your behalf, but on the rest of the Jorges in the world
Right.
that are not willing, but they're learning from me. Okay, if Cindy can do it, I can do it. Let's keep the momentum going.
Right, right. Thank you so much for saying that and for sharing that, and then too, like you were saying, all the movements, including Me Too, the Me Too movement. Just think about it. Me Too is in the school.
Yes.
You know, when you got these managed little boys and they're touching and they're doing stuff and you're
Yeah,
teaching them,
yeah,
you have to
yeah.
teach them, no, that is not proper. No, you
It's
are going beyond the
inappropriate. Yeah.
boundaries. But guess what? That just didn't start when they said Me Too. That was going on when I was a little girl.
Oh, absolutely.
That was going on in my
Yeah.
mother's time, being said, something being said to you, something being done. Then just think of all the other races, not just in the African American race or the people that are more vocal. There are some cultures that are very quiet,
Yes.
and you don't hear about the abduction and the rape and the
incest.
yes,
Yes.
and those things that's going on. So we have to be cognizant, and we have to also, like I said, speak out. We have to listen to others and not tell people to shut up.
I agree.
So this, of course, has been a powerful segment on Empowered Living. We thank Cindy Garcia for coming by. Anytime you want to come back and share and let us know how the progress is going, we are more than
Thank you.
willing, and we are in full support. Of course, I'll be calling you later on this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
For that special meeting that
That
you're going to
special
have.
meeting.
For a special meeting and just to get them, just say what you gotta say. Get it out there. Let's
Right.
do this, Cindy. So we are grateful to be sharing this morning this great information and having this opportunity and this platform. WHPR is the place to be. I know I didn't give the tagline as many times today.
That's
We were
right.
so into it, but we are just really grateful that we had this special guest and this opportunity to share this information, and just stay empowered and just know that your situation, speak on it, can help. You know, don't feel like it's just you. That's why it's Me Too in every situation, not just sexual offense. In Dreamers, it's Me Too. In
Yes.
education, it's
Dreamers.
happening to Me Too. That's what that means. So Me Too spreads across the board. So, you know, just stay empowered, Detroit, and thank you for joining us again for another special episode of Empowered Living.
If you hear this message, wherever you stand, I'm calling every woman, calling every man. We're the generation, we can't afford to wait. The future started yesterday, and we're already late. We've been looking for a song to sing.